I am Amina, the princess of the Zulu kingdom. My life has always been surrounded by responsibilities, protocols, and expectations. From an early age, I was taught to put the well-being of my people above all else. However, fate had different plans for me, plans I could never have imagined. It all started during the temporary peace festival between our kingdoms, Zulu and Matabele. It was a fragile truce, an attempt to cease the hostilities that had long separated us. The festival was vibrant and colorful, full of music, dancing, and forced smiles. I was there, representing my family and my people, trying to maintain a dignified and royal posture. It was then that I saw him for the first time. Kato, a warrior from Matabele, stood out in the crowd. His presence was imposing, his gaze intense and deep. Our eyes met, and in that instant, I felt an inexplicable connection. It was as if time had stopped, and all differences between our kingdoms had disappeared. Princess Amina? Kato's deep voice interrupted my thoughts. Yes, it's me, I replied, trying to hide the whirlwind of emotions that his presence unleashed in me. I am Kato, warrior of Matabele. It is an honor to meet you, he said, bowing respectfully. Nice to meet you, Kato, I replied, trying to maintain my composure. I hope you're enjoying the festival. Yes, it's been an interesting event, he said with a slight smile. But, I must admit, it's hard to ignore the tension that still hangs in the air. You're right, I agreed, feeling a pang of sadness. Our kingdoms have a complicated history. Maybe it's time we change that, he suggested, his piercing gaze fixed on mine. From that moment on, I knew something special was happening between us. During the festival, we found ways to see each other and talk away from prying eyes. Each encounter was an adventure, a mixture of fear and excitement. We knew our relationship was forbidden, but the connection we felt was stronger than any rule or tradition. Let's meet in the enchanted forest, on the border of our kingdoms, he whispered in one of our secret meetings. There we can talk without fear. I'll be there, I replied, feeling my heart speed up. Our first meeting in the forest was magical. The nature around us seemed to bless our meeting, and each word exchanged further solidified our bond. We talked about our lives, dreams, and hopes. I discovered that Kato was much more than a warrior. He was sensitive, intelligent, and had a worldview that enchanted me. Have you ever thought about running away? He asked suddenly, his eyes shining with hope. Run away? Where would we go? I asked, surprised. Anywhere, far from here, where we can experience our love without the restrictions of our families and traditions, he replied, holding my hands firmly. It's a crazy idea, I muttered, but deep down, I knew it was the only way we could be truly happy. Sometimes it takes courage to be happy, he said softly. Amina, I love you. And I'm willing to face anything for us. I love you too, Kato, I confessed, feeling tears fill my eyes. Let's do this. Let's run away together. And so, we make the most important decision of our lives. We would leave behind our families, our kingdoms, and everything we knew. We were about to embark on an uncertain journey, but we were together, and that was all that mattered. That night, under the starry sky of the African savanna, we sealed our pact with a passionate kiss. We were ready to face the world, moved by the power of our love and the hope of a better future. Deciding to escape, Kato and I found ourselves in the dead of night, on the edge of the enchanted forest. Amina, are you ready for this? There's no going back, Kato whispered, his eyes reflecting the full moon in the sky. I held his hand tightly and replied with determination, yes, Kato. I would rather live a day by your side in freedom than a lifetime in captivity. Our path was uncertain, but the promise of a future together fueled our courage. The forest closed in around us, the tree branches looking like hands trying to stop us. With each step, the the sound of nocturnal animals and the rustling of leaves intensified our sense of danger. "I heard there are lions in this region," said Kato, trying to ease the tension with a smile. "Well, I hope their bellies are full today," I replied, trying not to show how scared I felt. During the journey, we shared stories from our childhoods. When I was little, I dreamed of being a great warrior, but I never imagined that my destiny would bring me here, alongside a princess from the enemy kingdom, Kato confessed. "And I, Kato, have always dreamed of exploring the world beyond the palace walls. I never thought I would find true love in an enemy warrior," I replied, feeling a rush of emotion as I realized how much our lives had changed. With each passing day, our bond grew stronger. We faced torrential rain, which left us drenched and exhausted, and the scorching heat of the African sun, which dehydrated us and tested our limits. During one particularly cold night, we took shelter in a small cave. "Amina, you're shaking," Kato said worriedly as he wrapped his arms around me for warmth. "I'm fine, Kato. As long as I'm with you, everything will be fine," I replied, feeling the warmth of his body comforting me. Our journey has not only been physical, but also emotional. We share our deepest fears and dreams. "I'm afraid that we can never live in peace, that we will always be hunted," I confessed one night as we watched the stars. "Amina, I promise that I will do everything to protect you. Our love is stronger than any obstacle," Kato replied, shaking my hand firmly. But with every step, it became clear that we were being followed. We found fresh tracks and clear signs that the warriors of our kingdoms were on our trail. The tension was increasing, but our determination did not waver. One moonlit night, while we were resting by a stream, a mysterious shaman appeared out of nowhere. "You are in great danger," he said, his voice echoing in the stillness of the night. "Who are you?" Kato asked, immediately in a defensive stance. "I'm just a guide, sent by the spirits to help you," he replied, handing us a talisman. "This talisman will be crucial to your destiny. Guard it well." We thanked the shaman and continued our journey, now with a new purpose. With each step, the talisman seemed to pulse with its own energy, as if it were guiding us. When crossing a dangerous river, we feel an oppressive presence. "They're close," Kato whispered, eyes fixed on the opposite bank. Before we could react, we were ambushed by the combined forces of our kingdoms. Zulu and Matabele warriors appeared from all sides, surrounding us. "Surrender, and your lives will be spared," shouted one of the warrior leaders. I looked at Kato, eyes full of despair, but he just squeezed my hand and whispered, "Trust me, Amina. We'll get out of this together." With no choice, we were captured, but the flame of our love continued to burn brightly in our hearts. And so, even surrounded by enemies, we knew that this would not be the last time we would fight for our love and peace between our kingdoms. The capture of Kato and I was a moment of pure tension and despair. We were in the middle of the river, trying to cross to the other bank, when suddenly, we heard screams and the sound of weapons being drawn. Warriors from both kingdoms surrounded us. I could feel the fear and anger in their eyes. Kato held my hand tightly, his eyes fixed on mine, conveying a strength that helped me stay calm. "No matter what happens, Amina, I'm with you," he whispered, squeezing my hand. "I know, Kato. We'll face this together," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The warriors forcibly separated us and took us back to our respective kingdoms. I was thrown into a cold, dark cell, where I spent hours, maybe days, not knowing what was happening to Kato. My heart ached with worry for him, but also with fear of what our families would do to us. Finally, I was taken to the main hall of the palace, where my father, King Wamba, was sitting on his throne, with a stern expression on his face. On the other side, Chief Nkosana was equally serious. Kato was chained next to me, but even so, our eyes met, and in that moment, I knew that no matter what happened, our love was stronger than any adversity. You have dishonored our family, Amina, my father began, his voice shaking with anger. And you, Kato, dared to disrespect our kingdom. You both deserve execution. Dad, please listen to me, I begged, feeling the tears start to well up. Our love is not a dishonor. It is a sign that our kingdoms can find peace. Silence, shouted Chief Nkosana. We don't want to hear any more lies. Your betrayal must be punished. I took a deep breath and looked at the gathered crowd, feeling courage rising within me. I needed to talk, I needed to make them understand. Please listen, I began, my voice echoing throughout the room. Kato and I fell in love not because we wanted to disobey, but because we saw something in each other that transcends our differences. Our love is pure, it is true. And if you look beyond the hate and distrust, you will see that it can be the key to unite our kingdoms. There were murmurs in the crowd, and I saw some expressions soften. I continued, feeling hope growing. There is an ancient prophecy, he said, remembering the shaman's words. It speaks of a love destined to unite our kingdoms. Kato and I are that love. Please do not let fear and distrust destroy this chance for peace. The room fell silent, and I could see the doubt in the eyes of some of the elders. Then one of the older ones stood up and spoke. I remember that prophecy, he said slowly. Many years ago, it was said that true love would bring peace and prosperity to our kingdoms. Perhaps now is the time to believe it. My father and Chief Nkosana looked at each other, the anger on their faces beginning to subside. However, before they could respond, a stampede broke out. The warriors were divided, some wanting to free us, others still demanding our execution. In the midst of the confusion, I saw the shaman who had given us the talisman. He approached me and Kato discreetly. You guys need to get out of here, now, he whispered, placing something in my hands. This talisman still has power. Use it wisely. Kato and I looked at each other and, taking advantage of the distraction, we managed to escape again, with our hearts full of hope and the shaman's talisman guiding us. The battle to unite our kingdoms was just beginning, but we knew that together we were invincible. Taking refuge in the sacred cave, Kato and I were exhausted but determined. The cave was a place of serenity, with walls covered in ancient cave paintings. It seemed as if time had stopped there. As we settled in, Kato found a small chest hidden in a recess in the rock. When we opened it, we discovered the ancient scrolls that the shaman had mentioned. See, Amina, these scrolls look ancient. Perhaps they contain the key to understanding the prophecy, said Kato, holding one of the documents carefully. I looked at the symbols and words written in a language that seemed almost forgotten by time. We need to decipher them. They may be our only chance, I replied, feeling a mixture of hope and despair. We spent hours studying the scrolls, trying to unlock their secrets. The words began to make sense, revealing a story of love and union that transcended generations. The prophecy spoke of two hearts destined to unite enemy kingdoms, bringing peace and prosperity. Kato and I were those hearts. It's true, Kato. Our union is destined to bring peace. We need to go back and show that to everyone, I declared with conviction. Kato nodded, his eyes shining with determination. Yes, Amina. We need to put an end to this war before it's too late. With the revelation of the scrolls, we made the decision to return to our kingdoms and confront our fathers and leaders. The way back was dangerous, but we were determined. When we arrived, we found a bleak scene of imminent war. Warriors on both sides were ready for battle, and the atmosphere of tension was palpable. We need to act quickly, Amina, Kato said, holding my hand tightly. We ran towards the battlefield, our hearts beating fast. With the talisman in hand, I called upon its power, and a magical barrier formed between the armies, forcing a temporary truce. Everyone stopped and looked at us in amazement. "Attention, everyone! Listen to us!" I shouted, my voice echoing across the field. "We, Amina and Kato, bring the truth about an ancient prophecy. This scroll proves that our love is destined to unite our kingdoms, bringing peace and prosperity." The warriors and leaders of the kingdoms approached, curious and skeptical. My father, King Mwamba, and Chief Nkosana, Kato's father, were among them, their expressions angry and suspicious. "What are you saying, Amina? How can forbidden love bring peace?" asked King Mwamba, his voice full of authority. I showed him and everyone present the scrolls. These ancient documents reveal a prophecy about a love that will unite our kingdoms. Kato and I are that love. If we continue to fight, we will be ignoring our destiny and dooming our people. Chief Nkosana examined the scrolls, his eyes darkening with the truth he was beginning to understand. What if this prophecy is true? What if we are destined to live in peace? "It's true, Father," Kato spoke, his eyes fixed on Chief Nkosana. "War will only bring us destruction. But together, we can build a better future." There was a moment of silence as everyone considered our words. The tension was palpable, but I could see the message was starting to sink in. "We need time to discuss this," King Mwamba said finally. "Gather in the Great Hall. Let's hear what these scrolls have to say." Kato and I looked at each other, feeling a spark of hope. We were far from safe, but at least we had reached a truce. We walked together towards the Great Hall, our hearts intertwined with the hope that our love could truly change the fate of our kingdoms. The Great Hall was filled with leaders, elders, and warriors from both sides. The atmosphere was tense, but there was a sense of expectation in the air. We knew that the next meeting would be decisive. Kato and I were ready to face whatever came, confident that our love and the truth of the scrolls could finally bring the peace our people so desperately needed. And so, we awaited the meeting, knowing that the fate of the Zulu and Matabele kingdoms was about to be decided. The hall was filled with murmurs when Amina and Kato entered, hand in hand, with the scrolls that revealed the prophecy. The air was thick with tension as the leaders of the Zulu and Matabele kingdoms met for the first time in decades. I could feel Kato's heart beating as hard as mine as we approached the center of the room. "Father, Chief Nkosana, please listen to us," I began, my voice firm but full of emotion. "These scrolls confirm the prophecy that our love was destined to unite our kingdoms. We cannot continue this senseless war." Chief Nkosana, a man with a stern expression and piercing eyes, raised his hand to silence the murmurs. "And why should we believe you? How do we know this isn't just a fabrication to save your lives?" Kato stepped forward, holding the talisman the shaman had given us. "Because the talisman we have is the key to this prophecy. It was given to us by a mysterious shaman, who we now know to be the ancestral spirit of our kingdoms, returned to ensure peace." A deep silence took over the hall when Counselor Jabari, who was always at my father's side, King Mwamba, began to squirm uncomfortably. "This is nonsense," he exclaimed, in a voice that, for the first time, showed signs of fear. "They're trying to trick you." I knew this was the time to reveal the truth about Jabari. "Father, Jabari has been a poisonous influence in our kingdom," I declared, looking directly into the advisor's eyes. "He manipulated events to foment hatred among our people, all for his own benefit." King Mwamba frowned, looking at Jabari suspiciously. "Explain yourself, Jabari. Is there truth in my daughter's words?" Jabari began to sweat, his mask of confidence crumbling. "Your Majesty, I was just trying to protect our kingdom," he stammered, but his words sounded hollow. Kato then intervened. "We found evidence of his machinations. He organized attacks on both kingdoms, making them look like the work of the enemy, all to keep the war going and profit from it." Chief Nkosana stood up, his hard expression softening a little. If this is true, Jabari must be punished. We cannot allow a traitor to remain among us. The revelation was enough for Jabari to be arrested immediately, and justice began to be served. With this obstacle removed, the leaders of the kingdoms began to seriously discuss the union. Days later, preparations for our wedding were in full swing. The union of Amina and Kato would be the symbol of a new era of peace and prosperity. The big day arrived, and the sun shone brightly over the savannah, as if even the heavens were blessing our union. During the ceremony, my father, King Wamba, and Chief Nkosana took an oath of unity and cooperation, sealed with our marriage vows. May this wedding be the beginning of a new era for our kingdoms, declared King Wamba, and everyone present applauded enthusiastically. However, the biggest surprise was yet to come. The moment Kato and I exchanged our vows, a familiar figure appeared in the distance. The shaman who had helped us, now recognized as the ancestral spirit of the kingdoms, walked slowly towards us. "You have fulfilled the prophecy," he said, with a voice that resounded like an eternal echo. "Now prosper in peace and unity." And with those words, he disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving everyone in ecstasy and reverence. That moment sealed our union and guaranteed peace between our peoples. Kato and I not only conquered our own destinies, but also changed the course of our kingdom's history, bringing about an era of peace and prosperity for all. The days that followed were one of celebration and joy. The Zulu and Matabele kingdoms began to work together, sharing knowledge, resources, and cultures. The union brought a rebirth to both peoples, and our love became a legend that would be told for generations. And so, Amina and Kato's courage and love transcended the barriers of hate and war, uniting hearts and nations. The prophecy was fulfilled, and peace reigned supreme in the African savanna.